The last time a Greek defense minister visited Turkey was back in 2002. Over those 2 decades, the neighbors saw their relations swing from cooperation towards confrontation. The last few years were especially tense following a series of standoffs, both in the open sea and along their border. But following the devastating February 6 quakes that struck southern Turkey, Greece stepped forward as one of the first countries to provide relief supplies and rescue teams. Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar, together with his Greek counterpart Nikos Pana-gio-top-oulos, held a joint news conference in Hatay, which suffered some of the most damage from the quakes. Akar spoke on how the two countries needed to resolve their differences through dialogue.
As two civilized countries, Turkey and Greece can address these problems in line with the spirit of alliances, via peaceful manner, mutual respect and dialogue.
The two defense chiefs then toured quake-hit regions before meeting with survivors at hospitals and temporary shelters. Immediately following the February 6 quakes, Greece's foreign minister also toured devastated areas in a show of solidarity that the two NATO allies were putting past differences on hold in order to address humanitarian needs. And to further discuss the Greek defense chief's visit to Turkey, joining me now from Lefkoşa in the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus is Emete Gozuguzelli. She is an associate professor at Ankara Social Sciences University. And from Washington, D.C., Dimitris Stachouras. He is a senior research fellow at the Hellenic Foundation for European and Foreign Policy. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Emete, the last time a Greek defense minister visited Turkey was in 2002. So, what do you make of this visit, and is this the latest sign that tensions have waned between the two countries?
Actually, this is very important for the both sides because it is time to concentrate the cooperation and the dialogue and giving more chance to diplomacy. And the both sides agreed on to continue on cooperation and show its goodwill, and which they wanted to come together and discuss their frozen conflicts via cooperation and the dialogue. So really, this is a really important topic for us, at least for the regional security, because both of them actually are the member of the NATO. So they focus their national security, and the European security also is more important because after the Ukraine and the Russia conflict, as you know, that the security issue is very important. So both sides agree to continue and to give a chance for their relations between them.
So, Dimitris, after 2 months, is earthquake diplomacy still proving to be effective? I mean, are both countries really eager to mend their ties, and could this positive atmosphere be maintained?
Aisha, hello, and thank you for having me, first of all. At Straight Talk. I think that it's very important that this momentum is continuing, despite the fact that both Athens and Ankara are having elections coming up. I wasn't quite sure if the momentum would have been maintained following the catastrophic earthquakes. And clearly there is a degree of calculation here going on in terms of wanting to make sure that calmness will be maintained until those crucial elections for both countries take place in May. But the important thing right now is that it is continuing, that they are building on an existing momentum. We saw this with the foreign secretaries, we now see it with the defense ministers, and we also have important statements, especially from the president of Turkey, who talks about dialogue now and how it is through dialogue that bilateral issues can be overcome. I think this has been the position of Athens all the way, and should that momentum continue after May, and maybe we can see some more movement going on issues of high politics, because as you know, we already have movement on low politics issues. There is a new agenda on returning to the confidence building measures. So all of this is very helpful at a time when regional instability is going on, at a time when the Middle East appears to be flaming up again. Turkey and Greece can play that role of stability in the region.
So, Emete, meanwhile, the U.S., after its decision to lift the arms sales embargoes on southern Cyprus, the U.S. will now train Greek Cypriot troops with the New Jersey Army National Guard. So, could this deal derail, between the United States and the Greek Cypriot sector derail the positive momentum between Ankara and Athens?
Actually, really, we should condemn this treaty because it is not envisage the peaceful efforts, and it is not reflects the realities of the Eastern Mediterranean, because we know that Eastern Mediterranean is a critical zone, and we have Cyprus question as well. So, in accordance to the United Nations principles and the rest of the norms and rules, we have seen that the cooperation is essential for the Cyprus question. And we have seen if one side is removing the armament program for the Greek Cypriot side, then the balance can be disturbed. So that's why it should be condemned, because it may be cause a arm race, it can disrupt the balance, and also prevents the peaceful efforts and the confidence buildings of both sides in Cyprus questions. So also it has a risks. It may be create a risk and threats for Turkish Cypriot state as well. That's why Turkish guarantee power is more important if we look at this deal.
So, Dimitris, what do you make of this deal? I mean, what do you make of its timing? Does Washington have something to gain from it, or does it get leverage when Turkiye and Greece are in heated discussions?
Frankly, I don't make too much out of this particular deal. It comes as the result of the decision, which you know, by the US administration to lift the ban on weapon sales to the Republic of Cyprus, which is something that happened 2 years ago. What we now have is an agreement by one of the state's national guards. You need to look into the composition of the local state here in the US to figure out exactly how the Republic of Cyprus is setting up those deals. But I think we need to keep the big picture in mind here. Cyprus has a new elected leader. Hopefully the negotiations with the Turkish Cypriot community will resume as quickly as possible. And to your question, I think it is both in Athens and in Ankara's vital interest to make sure that those talks resume ASAP within the framework set by the United Nations. The relations that are improving between Greece and Turkey will only be helpful in that regard. And I don't think that this particular deal is in any way taking attention away from the big story, which should be the solution of the Cyprus conflict in the interest of all parties.
So, Emete, how will the Turkish side reciprocate to this move? I mean, what are the options?
Actually, the options for the Turkish side Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus has the authority to make some agreements with Turkey, and actually on the defense policy, both sides agree on to provide Turkish Cypriot security, because this is not just an equitable result for Turkish Cypriots, because during the process of the American embargoes, as you know, that after the COP that attacked the Greek junta in Cyprus, both sides in the international community agreed on the embargoes, because they believe that the process on the embargoes may provide closer ties between both sides and may create a synergy for reaching an agreement. So if you look at the historical past, you will see that the armament program not lead a peaceful stabilization for the region and for the country. So armament program really creates some risk and threats for both sides, and for regional security.
So, Dimitris, what does the U.S. want to achieve in southern Cyprus or in the island as a whole? I mean, is there a coordinated effort to counter Turkiye's influence in the Aegean as well as Eastern Mediterranean, or will this be construed as part of a organized effort to contain Russia and Russia's influence in the region?
I think the second one, Ayşe, is more important. It doesn't seem to me that the US administration has any particular interest in alienating Turkey, particularly at a time when, following Turkey's agreement, we now have, of course, Finland join the alliance. It is expected that something similar will happen with Sweden in the summer, and I think there are some indications on Turkey's side that they're moving to that direction, which would be very welcome by Washington. And also the idea that Turkey somehow a rival pole to that of the United States, I think is something that we should try and go beyond. Turkey is an ally within NATO. Certainly on the part of Greece, it is considered an ally on common issues when it comes to migration, certainly when it comes to making sure that stability will be restored following the invasion of Ukraine. And in that sense, I do not believe that Washington's calculations have to do with the alienation of Turkey. It more has to do with making sure that Turkey remains a normal ally within the alliance and makes its own very vitally important contributions in making sure that we create a new period in this region. And maybe in that sense, just very briefly, one can add your previous report on this agreement between the New Jersey National Guard and the Republic of Cyprus within that context. Maybe it is now, following the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, time to make sure that all participating states have a stake in that regional security, and they are involved in better training, better equipment, better logistics.
But doesn't it mean the further armament of the island?
There has been, as you know, for quite some time, this discussion about whether the Republic of Cyprus should be rearmed, whether the cooperation with the United States should move to a next level. I think this is something that the people of Cyprus and the communities, the Greek Cypriot community, the Turkish Cypriot community, will hopefully be able to arrange for themselves. We have a given status quo right now in terms of the Republic of Cyprus taking its own decisions. I don't think that it's for any outside observer to decide on what they should do about it. Fundamentally, I want to go back to my original point. Regardless of this deal, what I think everyone in Nicosia should be focusing on is making sure that the Cyprus problem is resolved. Mm-hmm. And it should be resolved as soon as possible, because if there is one thing that the Russian invasion of Ukraine has taught us, is that time is on no one's side when you have the last divided capital of Europe, Nicosia, still standing there, showing the failures of diplomacy over decades. And that is where we should be concentrating on.
All right, Dimitris and Emete, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.